I'd like to show you how to just coat the top of the cake and the board. So this is the final coat. So far I've coated the cake all in one, which was the first coat of royal icing, and then I've coated the side of the cake. Now I need to coat the top and the board, and that should be the last one. You can coat a cake as many times as you like until it is perfect, but when you work in an industry, you've got to think that that's not always acceptable. For competition work, you would need to do it that way, so you just keep adding the royal icing until you get a perfect coat. I've got my royal icing here, and I've got glycerine in it. Just to remind you, glycerine, we've talked about it before, but it stops the cake drying very, very hard. It allows you to put the knife through it, and it improves the cutting qualities of the cake. I've got a sharp knife, and I'm just going to check if anything's standing up proud of my cake. So I can feel a little bit of royal icing there, so I'll just very carefully take that off. When you do take any royal icing off in this way, you've got to be careful not to hold your knife at an angle. You want to hold it flat. If I hold it at an angle, I'm getting rid of that lovely sharp edge, and with a royal ice cake, that's what we need to keep. We need to have that sharp edge, straight sides, flat top. And as before, just check by putting your hand over it. Watch this board as well, because remembering it is paper. So you don't want to scratch it too much, but just removing any royal icing that's proud. Now you can use a pastry brush to get rid of any of those crumbs. Now the other thing that we need to look out for is the takeoff mark. So this mark, when I went round with a scraper, I came away, and that's what's called a takeoff mark, and that's here. So this takeoff mark, I just need to smooth down with that small sharp knife, nice and gently. Traditionally, we always used to use sandpaper to smooth cakes down. So the only problem is sandpaper isn't very hygienic, and you wouldn't want to eat a cake after you've used sandpaper on the cake. If it was a dummy, if it was for a competition, then sandpaper was fine. I've got my royal icing, it's always under cover. I don't want to put a lot of royal icing on this, so it's not like my first coat where I put a thick layer on. This is a thin layer, and you can see the paddling technique's exactly the same. So you paddle to get rid of your air bubbles and to make it nice and flat. There's no way you can smooth a cake home like that, because you'd be there all day. You wouldn't get it nice and even. If you find your royal icing's coming a little bit close to the edge, then just take that off, because we don't want the royal icing going down the sides. Always clean your palette knife and your ruler as you go. So I'm working, paddling, and you can see that royal icing is working towards the edge. Really important you get the consistency of your royal icing correct. A lot of people think, oh, I'll make the royal icing a little bit softer. It doesn't work like that. You have to make it up to piping consistency, to the right consistency, but not quite piping consistency. So it's the air that you don't put so much in, so you don't leave it on the mixer for so long. Use your ruler, finger on top, fingers on the side, and your thumb, so you can control in that ruler easily. You start in the middle. Oh, my hand's in the way, I've just realised you can't see it. I'll try and work like that. So you start in the middle, and you can see I've tilted my ruler a little bit, so I'm not holding it flat, I've just got a slight tilt. Going backwards and back again. So when I come to the end, I'm tilting it back. I'm coming right to the end. And when you think it looks good, come away. Yeah, that's not too bad. I've see an air bubble, I can fill that in. If it's not looking too good, or you've taken too much royal icing off, paddle it again and keep doing it until you're pleased with it. Now I've got to be careful with this royal icing that's coming down the side. So I'll take a clean palette knife and I hold it against the cake and I scrape down. And I clean that palette knife each time I do that. So you scrape down. Scrape down. Hopefully that royal icing has come right to the edge of your cake. And then just run the palette knife to take off any royal icing that you've got on the sides. It's always better to take it off at this stage than leaving it to dry and then taking it off later. It's always a lot neater. There, I've got my top. Now I'm going to do the board, and I'm going to paddle. I think it might be better if I come around this side of the table so you can see it a bit better. So I'm going to put some royal icing around the board, and I'm starting, as you can see, by putting it around the edge. And when I paddle the royal icing, it will go towards the cake. I'm always cleaning off the edge of that board as well. So I'm not putting too much on, but I'm just, my aim is to put enough on so it covers the board. So paddle in again to get rid of the air bubbles and to make it nice and level. You can see that it's working towards the edge of the cake. I'm just being careful it's not going up the side. And where it's thin, I'm putting some more royal icing on. There's two ways I can do this, and this is up to you. I can use my scraper by holding the scraper, starting and going all the way around, or I can use a clean palette knife and holding the palette knife and going round, exactly the same. It really doesn't matter. Again, like we did the side of the cake, my hand's coming right the way over and I'm going round in one go and come off. I'm not going round, stopping and starting. If I stop and start, I'll have ridges all the way around. So, and look at the edge, look at the royal icing as you're holding your palette knife, because I can correct it as I go around if I'm holding it incorrectly. Always clean your palette knife. Not too bad, I'll have another go there. So my hand's here where I'm holding it, my eyesight is here, so I can correct the palette knife if I need. All the way around. And you're aiming for a nice, neat take-off mark and off. Clean palette knife, constantly keeping my palette knife clean, constantly wiping it. Always keep covering up my royal icing each time. And I need to tidy up this edge. Scrape down, clean my palette knife, scrape down, clean my palette knife. You need to get into that rhythm. You would never put a dirty palette knife. So if that's dirty, I would never put it against the cake again, because I run the risk of the royal icing going on the board and spoiling my hard work. And once that cake is dry, excuse me, I've got a little bit of royal icing there. I can neaten that off again with a sharp knife. I've got a Takeoff mark here, sugar exceed. I can smooth that off with a knife as well. But my the overall aim is to have a nice flat top, straight sides, a nice sharp edge, and you don't want to see the board. If you can see any silver through the board, you need to put some more royal icing on and do it again. And the other aim, no air bubbles. It's okay, I've got the odd one here and there, I can cover those up. Okay, thank you.